Hi, I'm Jeanette Roche. This is Forum Daily West. Here are some of the top stories we've been following. Trump's tariff threat looms as premiers finalize their response plan. Plus, protests in Calgary as the Grassy Mountain coal mining hearing resumes. And over 3,000 educational support workers continue to strike north of Edmonton. Thanks so much for joining us. Doug Ford says he has yet to see anything in terms of a border security plan that could deter U.S. President-elect Donald Trump's proposed tariffs on Canadian goods. The Ontario Premier is reacting to Ottawa's pledge to spend $1.3 billion to tackle the issue, but he says it's not moving quickly enough. Estimates say that Ontario could lose almost 500,000 jobs if the U.S. tariffs are imposed.
Unfortunately, it's going to hurt Ontario and Canadian jobs, but I can assure our American friends it's going to hurt them just as much. But I was getting numbers yesterday from the ministries. It could cost 500,000 jobs. These tariffs will affect every single person. Even if they don't think they're tariffed in their sector, it's going to indirectly affect them. It's not going to be good. I'll tell you that right now. We need the federal government to step up with a solid plan. We heard a number thrown out there, $1.3 billion for our border protection. Have yet to see anything, nothing at all. Minister McGuinty, he needs to come out of hiding and get out there and start voicing his plan.
Despite Ford's criticism, the Saskatchewan government says it's sending 16 provincial law enforcement officers to the Canada-U.S. border to shore up security. Premier Scott Moe says the officers are to be equipped with a mobile command unit, license plate readers, drones, snowmobiles, and 3 planes. The officers are to be drawn from the province's Conservation, Highway Patrol, and K-9 handler teams. Incoming President-elect Donald Trump has raised concerns about security at the border while promising to impose a 25% tariff on Canadian goods.
We've worked closely with our federal government on border security, enhancing our border security, because herein lies an opportunity for us, not just as Canadians, but to do our part to ensure that we have a secure border on behalf of everyone that lives in North America, whether that be drugs, whether that be asylum seekers, whether it be illegal migrants, but to work together hand in hand with the American administration.
All 13 premiers are set to meet with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau tomorrow to finalize a plan of how to respond to the tariffs. And it sounds, by what some of them have said, they are not united in how they want to deal with Trump and his threats of tariffs. Brian Lilley, Toronto Sun columnist, explains.
Premier Furey out in Newfoundland and Labrador, he just wants to fight the Americans, was my takeaway. Well, that's great. Newfoundland and Labrador, guess what? They don't have a direct border connection with the United States. They're a very small population. They're a very small economy. Doesn't matter to them compared to Alberta or even more so Ontario. You talk to David Eby in British Columbia. He wants to fight the Americans. It's this anti-American, let's go, rah, rah. Look, I get that can be a bit of a rallying cry, but economically, it is stupid.
Catch that full interview with Brian Lilley coming up after business news, where he will also update us on the Liberal leadership race and Mark Carney's alleged connection to Jeffrey Epstein's girlfriend, Ghislaine Maxwell. Former BC Premier Christy Clark has decided not to seek the federal Liberal leadership. In a note to supporters, Clark says there's not enough time for her to mount a successful campaign and renew the party. Clark's announcement comes just days after she was forced to backtrack from her claim during a CBC interview that she was never a member of the Conservative Party. Liberal candidates face a fast-approaching cutoff date of January 27th to sign up for the race. On Monday, Federal Transport Minister Anita Anand announced she would also not be joining the race. Although yet to confirm he is running in the leadership race to replace Justin Trudeau, a new poll is suggesting Mark Carney is the top choice among supporters. Polling firm Leger surveyed around 1,500 people over the weekend, asking who they think should replace Justin Trudeau as leader of the governing party. But the majority, 78% of those polled, suggests Canadians are concerned most about the federal government's ability to handle Canada-U.S. relations. We'll be right back with more news from Forum Daily West. Well, some weeks have passed since Donald Trump proposed to annex Canada as the 51st state of the United States. What at first sounded like a bad joke has gained strength. Our BCN's Heidi Echeverria went to the streets to talk to experts and Canadians about this.
Because Canada and the United States, that would really be something. You get rid of that artificially drawn line, and you take a look at what that looks like. And it would also be much better for national security. Don't forget, we basically protect Canada.
This idea continues to generate controversy among Canadians. But what is the opinion of experts in the economic area of leverage on the matter? The CEO of Economic Development Leverage, Trevor Lewington, talk about this issue.
I mean, clearly it started out that most people thought Trump was joking. As he continues to talk about it, more and more people are starting to take this very seriously. At the end of the day, I think Canadians are very proud to be Canadians. When we've looked at polls, there's been polls conducted since Trump started making these comments, and only about 12 to 15% of Canadians actually support becoming a part of the United States. So the vast majority of Canadians have no interest in being part of the USA. Politicians from the Liberals to the Conservatives across the political spectrum have all said the same thing: thanks, but no thanks. There's no question that the threat of tariffs will have a very significant impact on Canada. A 25% tariff on everything we export to the US is going to do some serious financial damage to the Canadian economy. And in the next few months, I think it could be very painful. But the solution isn't necessarily just better integration with the US. Canada is a relatively small population and a relatively small economy when compared to the US. So even if we were hypothetically to join the US, we would have less standing and less clout than most of the large US states, California and Texas, for example. So simply joining the US is not a solution. However, we can look at reducing trade barriers within our own country, as well as improving our relationship with other countries that we do business with, like Europe and Asia. The real concern is the short-term damage to the economy and the maneuvering. Trump has been very clear. He plans to use what he calls economic force or economic coercion to make Canadians think twice about, maintaining the sovereignty of our country. And I think we should be prepared for a very unstable economy, changes in our fluctuation, and there's real risk in the next few months as these threats come to be reality. Alberta, I think, is very different than the rest of Canada for a couple of reasons. First, it's important to remember that 90% of our exports going out of Alberta go to the US. The United States is our single biggest customer. So there's no question Alberta has a very strong economic integration. And we also have very strong ties with the states that are to our south. We have very strong partnerships and trade relationships with Montana. We have a very strong connection with Utah. So I think make it perhaps a little bit different than the rest of the country.
We also talked with Canadians about this proposal, and this is what they had to say.
I think I speak for a lot of Albertans that would probably rather belong to the States than have to put up with another 5 years of Justin Trudeau and the Liberals.
He was very disrespectful to Canada. If it was to happen, I'd worry about healthcare because they do seem to have lots of issues with healthcare. I think our government needs to step up and stand up for ourselves and find some other areas that we can work with other countries as well, not just to rely on the U.S.
As criticisms of Trump's proposal continues to grow, the idea of annexing Canada as the 51st state of the United States is met with skepticism among Canadians. Beyond the initial reactions, the proposal raises questions about the intentions behind it and the potential impact it could have on relations between both countries once Trump assumes the presidency of the United States again. For Brit City News, I'm Heidi Echevarria.
Continuing on his Just Like Justin stance, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre is speaking out about Canada's head banker. In a post on X, Poilievre says, quote, "Carbon tax Carney is the ultimate Liberal insider. He's the chair of Trudeau's task force on economic growth and advised the Liberal government for years before that. And now he campaigns for the same Liberal policies that tax your work, double housing costs, and will hike the carbon tax to 61 cents per liter, just like Justin, end quote. The Princess of Wales says her cancer is in remission. In a social media post, Kate says the news comes following a visit to the hospital where she's been receiving treatment. Her Kensington Palace office says she is, quote, gradually returning to public engagements. She announced in September that she had completed chemotherapy. Now, Heritage Minister Pascal Saint-Onge says talk from Pierre Poilievre's about killing an information source for Canadians could have consequences given changes with some social media giants. Saint-Onge says the leader's promise to defund the CBC is, quote, consequential, and that she's worried that he is willing to sell Canada to these tech geeks and willing to destroy our independent news ecosystem, end quote. She says the issue shouldn't be about left or right-wing politics, or even if you like the CBC or not. Well, Los Angeles fires could reach an estimated $30 billion for insurers, according to a report released this week by Wells Fargo and Goldman Sachs. And the report adds that after accounting for non-insured damages, the total cost will balloon to $40 billion. The ongoing fires appear to be the costliest wildfire event in California history and one of the costliest natural disasters in U.S. history. More than 12,000 homes and other structures have burned. At least 24 people are dead, with more than a dozen others unaccounted for. About 92,000 people remain under a mandatory evacuation order, and another 89,000 are under evacuation warnings. And one of those who lost nearly everything is Edmonton-raised trumpeter Jens Linderman, who says he's counting on his music to help carry him through the loss of his Pacific Palisades home.
The feeling when you know you're about to evacuate, so you go through the process of grabbing things that are important, your absolutely most critical things, your marriage license, your passports, papers that you need. Those are already prepared. And then you have a little bit of time to grab the things that you think would mean something to you. Interestingly for me, that was, I had a collection of 35 trumpets and I grabbed 8 of them quickly. And the very first one I grabbed was a horn that was given to me by the great Doc Severinsen. So you reach for things that they're significant. I describe it as a way that you don't really fully understand. You just think you have to have them. In the aftermath, as I said, it's still a process that I'm still processing emotionally because some of it is rational and some of it isn't rational. But I think it's the things that mean something to you on a very, very deep level that you reach for.
Protests have been gathering across Alberta as a public hearing into a contentious coal mining proposal resumes today in Calgary. The protests aim to voice environmental concerns regarding the Grassy Mountain coal mining project. The project is proposed by Australian company Northback Holdings, who plan to mine metallurgical coal in a mountainous area just north of Crow's Nest Pass. The Alberta Energy Regulator began hearings to approve the project in early December in Pincher Creek. Once it finishes in Calgary, the regulator will have 90 days to decide whether Northback can start drilling. In Lethbridge, a protest occurred around 3rd Avenue on Saturday, where similar environmental concerns are shared in the region, including the possibility of mass amounts of selenium finding its way into the Oldman River. The municipality of Crow's Nest Pass held a referendum in November, which found 71% of residents in favor of the project. The hearings in Calgary will continue into the week. The Canadian Union of Public Employees says more than 200 educational support workers in a school district north of Edmonton are on strike until there's a settlement with their employer. It comes a day after over 3,000 union members in the provincial capital walked off their jobs, demanding wage increases. The workers are demanding that they call fair wages from the Edmonton Public School Board and Sturgeon Public School Division. Kelly Salisbury, president of the CUPE local representing support staff in the Sturgeon Public School Division, says people aren't willing to take those jobs at the pay now being offered. School support workers include administrative staff, education assistants, and cafeteria workers.
Well, you know, the government has capped what the school board can offer us. The school board is currently offering us 2.75%. The cost of living has gone up by 30%. Our members are not able to sustain life right now. We're not asking for a lot. We're just asking to be able to pay our bills, not have to hold a second job, and not have to visit a food bank. We're not being unreasonable. We're just asking for a livable wage. We're not asking for trips to Mexico or Mercedes. We're asking to be able to pay our bills. We're asking to be able to sustain life here in Alberta. You know, a lot of our members say they can't afford to strike, but they can't afford not to. They're willing to do this as long as it takes to get a livable wage. You know, strike pay is not a lot, but you know, we're going to do everything we can with the resources we have to support them.
That is your Forum Daily West report. I'm Jeanette Roche. Thanks so much for watching.